This is Prince George's County Executive Rashawn Baker, and you're listening to the Maryland Crabs Podcast.
Live from a grungy kitchen table located in Annapolis, Maryland's scenic and historic capital, it's the Maryland Crabs Podcast. With each episode, your hosts, Tim Hamilton, John Fernay, and the occasional guest will dive in and pick apart the stuff that really matters most to you. We're too lazy to actually solve any of these problems, but we can definitely stir the pot. From schools, politics, parking in the fire lane, to those horrible people who drive BMWs. And here with this week's episode, live from the kitchen table, Tim Hamilton and John Fernay.
It's Maryland Crabs time. It's a dreary Tuesday, or Monday, right? But when you hear this, it's going to be
it's Monday.
A bright Thursday.
I have to think.
Look back in history and feel sorry for the past us.
Yeah, my days are all running into one another here. And it's,
I do that too, but I'm a drinker.
Yes, we're the Maryland Crabs, and we had a great episode last week, didn't we?
That was a lot of fun. I was talking to someone about that recently, about the episodes that I really like. They're all fun. Every one of them is just puppies and unicorns, but
that's just because of my personality.
Yes. But I look at the ones that I thought were particularly fun just because you get a really good rhythm going, and that was, we had good fun with Chase and with Ken Burns and with Sean O'Neill and Alex Pline and Jared Littman. Those are all people who have a fun time when they're here, or at least they are good at faking it. But this one I like because I don't want to dwell on being negative and just picking things apart, because it's easy to do that. So whenever we do something like that, I think we make an effort to kind of offer solutions. And this is one that we didn't have to do that we could splurge and just be absolutely shitty because it was a crummy situation.
Well, it was. And Jimmy DeButz had written a wonderful
prophetic
editorial for the Capitol before the recent Market House vote. And if you have not listened to that episode last weekend or last Thursday, definitely go take a listen to it.
It was a very popular one. That got a lot of downloads.
It certainly is one of our more popular ones, and I think we resonated with a lot of people.
Well, I think what I was saying was I could feel the frustration by so many people on something that I think everyone has resolved themselves to a fact that it has become a dud, which is the Market House, and it's become so cliche to make fun of the Market House and what happened with it. We kind of calmed down to a dull roar over the last few years, and everyone just resolved themselves to the fact that it's never going to be the same as it was. And it wasn't a campaign issue, but if you look at after the vote last Monday, it's become a campaign issue. And I think it's become one of the hottest ones because it just represents the sheer incompetence that can occur within a governmental organization when people decide that they don't want to move a project forward.
Well, it is. And I think that, as I said in the episode, I said that I think that everybody that was sitting on that council that was running for re-election just took a big ding.
That was so foolish, I think, on every possible strategic meter to do something like that.
Which also brings us to the next question, is their next meeting is September 11th. They just postponed it till September 11th, and I guess the question remains. Yeah. The question remains is, will they do it on September 11th?
I think they painted themselves into a corner, and I think you said that too, saying, look, maybe they did rush into this, maybe this does take some more discussion, but the way that the whole process unfolded was that it made it difficult to move forward on any level and seem competent. So even if they took time to look more into what's involved.
My guess is they're going to punt on it again. I think there's so much that's unanswered on the process end from the law, Department of Law, from Planning and Zoning on the city's behalf, that the bidders need that direction. It's unfair to the bidders or the respondents.
The whole process has been unfair to the bidders.
The respondents is very unfair to them. So far, it's already been unfair. Postponing it anymore is not going to be any more unfair. But I think they're going to be chicken, because you've got a primary race, and most of them have a challenger the following week.
I don't know, but if you postpone it, that is all of a sudden you're handing your challenger a big, fat, juicy issue to chew on.
I think they've got the issue already handed to them. You can reasonably make the argument that, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take the next month or so and have the law office and the non-political aspect of this contract or agreement sort of ironed out, so it is, use a term, quote, shovel ready, unquote, and allow the next council to do it. That's just my thought.
But I think it was interesting when we had Jimmy here, because this shows how everyone thinks that they know the answer to the Market House, and no one does. I had a different opinion than did Jimmy, than did you. I think you asked all three of us what should be done with the Market House, and all three of us have a different opinion. So I'm not saying that there's an obvious answer that council's missing. I'm not saying that.
Right.
But I'm saying you got to move forward with something at some point, or hand it over to someone who's already successful and proven themselves. and that's something that they have to do, but they don't want to relinquish control of the process, but they admit up front that they're horrible at this process.
Yeah.
So at some point, you got to do something. And again, you get 10 people in this room, there are going to be 10 different opinions about what to do about the
No, you've got to figure out something and make the decision as to what the best thing is and move on with it, and not just knowing that you're going to piss off, a constituency, which is fine.
Right, and that's not to say that whoever is the best one to do this is not going to have the bumps along the way. You're not going to hand the keys over to someone, some sort of messianic figure when it comes to market houses, and it's going to absolutely take off. I mean, there's going to be some bumps. There's going to be some problems with the city, with the permitting, some parking. There's going to be unforeseen challenges that comes to open the business. But I think the problem is, whereas I say that I get that, I think everyone's patience has run out, because this would be the fourth or fifth iteration of the market house. And at that point, you're just going to say, oh, it's a failure again. It's bound not to work. So I think the people who take over for the next iteration of the market house are not going to have much in the way of patience from the general population. And that's not fair to them.
It's not a good position to be in.
No.
All right, let's not beat this dead horse. Let's talk about what we're doing this week.
We're doing baseball.
Yeah.
Sort of.
What we're doing is we've got Steve Salem, who is the president and CEO of the Cal Ripken Sr. Foundation, coming in to talk to us. And how that came about is that we camped out on Cal Ripken's front yard, and he came out the front door and said, "Get the hell off of my yard," and threw this guy's business card. No. But no, we wanted to talk about what the Cal Ripken Sr. Foundation is doing, not only across Maryland, but across the United States, and with the at-risk youth of America. And specifically sort of what they've done here in Annapolis, where some people don't realize that
I didn't realize how big they were. They're sprawlingly huge. They're all over the country. I thought it would just be, Maryland, maybe the Northeast corridor, but they're all over in California. They're in Texas. They're everywhere.
And there's some really cool things that they're doing that I didn't realize, not just baseball for kids that can run around the bases. So we'll get into that in a little bit. We want to just have one quick sponsor spot there, but if you're listening to this, make sure you're subscribing to us on Apple Podcasts. Give us a rating, give us a review.
And the subscribe part, we say that every week, just to explain what everyone knows, is that when you go to find our podcast, not through the website or through Facebook, where you can just click on it and watch the video, but if you go to whatever app your device uses for podcasts and you find our podcast and hit subscribe, that essentially means that every time we have a new podcast or a crab cake, and we're going to talk about that later, you're going to get those automatically downloaded to your devices every Thursday or whenever the crab cake's released. So you don't have to worry about it. I always say it's like subscribing to a magazine. Once you subscribe, anytime there's a new edition, it's just sent right to you, so you don't have to worry about it.
I do it. Just this morning, I was listening to the Annapolis podcast. Came in overnight.
Yep.
When I was walking my circles in the rec center, this is there.
And we're one of the few that come, we're noon every Thursday. I don't think we've missed yet. So every Thursday at noon.
12:01 p.m.
There's
just because I'm a little bit weird about whether 12:00 is really a.m. or p.m. Right. So I go with 01 p.m.
There's a bunch of podcasts that I subscribe to that have hard deliveries like that. And I get excited like every Thursday when because Thursday's the magic day for podcasts for some reason.
Right. But do that. You want to get in touch with us, info@themarylandcrabs.com. Twitter is MD Crabs Podcast. Website is themarylandcrabs.com. And Facebook, you can just search the Maryland Crabs. We've got a page and a group. And I'll tell you what, let's just play this sponsor, and we'll get back right into it with Steve Salem, the president and CEO of the Cal Ripken Sr. Foundation.
Hey folks, this is Tim Hamilton, your favorite co-host of the Maryland Crabs Podcast. Besides being hilarious and charming on this podcast every week, I'm also a marketing professional with clients all over the region. I buy advertising and media from my clients, including TV, cable, newspaper, magazine, Facebook, blah, blah, blah. And this may surprise you, but I still buy direct mail. I know it sounds very 1978, but to be completely honest, if you have a compelling message to convey, and you do it in a creative way, direct mail is dollar for dollar one of the best advertising channels out there, especially for small businesses who don't have much in the way of a marketing or advertising budget. And if I decide to use direct mail for a project, I call Post Haste Mailing in Annapolis. I've worked with Jack Ellis, the owner of Post Haste, for almost 15 years now on countless projects, and he is, in all honesty, my number one most trusted vendor. In fact, whenever I find myself in a crisis, a sales slump, an event that looked like it was going to fall on its face, a new product launch that was pushed up a few weeks, my very first phone call is always to Jack. He always gives me the answer I need. Maybe not the answer that I want, but one that gets me out of that particular jam. I'm not kidding. He has saved my job on more than one occasion. Seriously. So what does Post Haste Mailing do? Well, they do mailings, duh. That's in the name after all. But it's Jack's decades of experience that gives you the best bang for your marketing buck. Do you want to micro-target certain customers or neighborhoods or businesses? Jack can pull a list for you that makes sure that your mailing gets into the hands of your target demographic without the advertising waste that you get with other media. That means that if you have a small budget, you you can still get the results you need. And if you need printing done, post-haste mailing can do that too. Postcards of any size, pamphlets, variable data printing, cut sheet laser printing, and a bunch of other printing terms that I don't understand. But Jack understands them, and he knows what's best for my business and how I can get the best bang for my buck. So if you're a business owner and you've never considered direct mail, give Jack at Post Haste Mailing a call to see what he can do for you. I promise you that you will be surprised at the options you didn't know were available to your business. Who knows? Maybe someday Jack can save your job too.
And we are here coming from the Commons again, overlooking beautiful and today wet West Street in Annapolis, Maryland. And we have Steve Salem with us, who is the Executive Director or President, CEO of the Cal Ripken Sr. Foundation. And obviously anybody that has listening to this that has been in Maryland for more than a week or two knows the name Cal Ripken, certainly with his illustrious career with the Baltimore Orioles.
And we get the sightings around town too.
Yes, we do now.
Like Sasquatch sightings, you get the pictures and he's gone.
He's real though.
He's big.
And then also, of course, there is a field that is here in town, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, that is the responsibility, or you guys are responsible for bringing it to us, which is just a phenomenal thing there. And we wanted to talk about, we all know about Cal the player, and we know about Billy the player. And they established this foundation, the two of them, correct?
Correct. And their family.
To honor
Mom, sister.
Cal and Billy's father, Cal Ripken Sr.
Right.
Also a longtime player manager with the Baltimore Orioles. How did the foundation start?
Well, as you just said, Cal Sr. passed away, and the family wanted to carry on his legacy, which had been helping kids who needed a little bit of a little guidance in their life, a helping hand. Cal Sr. lost his dad when he was young, and you hear Cal and Bill talk about it. Weekends would come around, and their dad was out at the park with kids in the neighborhood, whether they were in Maryland or Iowa or Rochester, wherever it was he was managing, coaching. That's where he'd be on weekends. So if they wanted to spend time with him, they would go and have to go with him to the park. So it was important to him to help these kids who didn't have the same opportunities that some of the other kids had. And so the legacy they wanted to carry on was helping kids who needed a helping hand.
And you said they sort of traveled with their dad to be with him on weekends when he was on the road?
Yes. So, and I won't do the story justice. Really, you want to hear Cal and Bill tell it. But sure, when he was managing in little towns around America or coaching or even playing, I'm sure the family would be with him in some cases. And in other cases, it was here at home when he was coaching in Maryland.
So this need was probably ingrained for both Cal and Billy at a really young age. But
no doubt.
Really didn't manifest itself until late or after their major league careers.
That's right. Cal was still playing. Cal Sr. passed away in 1999. Cal was still playing. And I think Billy had just left the game. So tail end of Cal's career, end of Billy's career. And
you're out there working with kids and whatnot. What does the Cal Ripken Sr. Foundation do?
So our mission is to help at-risk kids, provide them with opportunities that they're not going to get at home. These are kids who typically come from a single-parent family, inner city type neighborhood, where the opportunities for advancement, opportunities to assist you in becoming a productive, contributing adult don't necessarily exist. And if they do, these kids don't know where to find it anyway. And so our mission is to help these kids, provide them with opportunities so that they can move forward in life. That's the nice way of saying it. The reality, for practical purposes, what you're talking about are kids who, as I said, they grow up in single-parent families. They may or may not ever see that single parent. They're really being raised by their great-grandmother, their great-great-grandmother. Without somebody intervening in their lives, they have no chance.
And a male figure, too.
Yeah, that's right. And think about that, being raised by your great-great-grandmother. I could not tell you who my great-great-grandmother was. I did not grow up in an especially successful family. I don't know who my great-great-grandmother was. I don't know who my great-grandmother was. They're being raised by their great-great-grandmothers who's 50, 55 years old. It's something that most of us can't relate to. And when you see, when the rioting took place in Baltimore, and the newscasters, of course, were 24/7, right? Where are the parents? You talk about disconnected from reality and not understanding the issue. There are no parents.
My son plays PAL football. So in Annapolis, a lot of the participants come from public housing. And I'd see those boys come to and from practice carrying their equipment up and down a busy street thoroughfare in the middle of Annapolis, and you never saw any parent whatsoever. And this was during fall, so they'd be going home at night in the dark, and they'd be hitting people up for money from McDonald's because the only food they get during the day, a lot of them, is the programs that they get in the schools.
That's exactly right. A lot of these kids, you go into West Baltimore, for example, or Southeast Washington, D.C., and you meet with these kids, they will tell you the only reason they go to school is because they're hungry. I mean, how sad is that?
Wow.
Yeah, there's a program. Jared Lippman, who is Ward 5 alderman here in Annapolis, he honored a woman in town who coordinates the food program at the grade schools along in Annapolis, and she provides them with some of these kids with the only meals they get in a day.
Yeah.
And if there's a snow day, they're not eating. If there's a holiday, they're not. And it's just you kind of, it's easy to have kids like this that are stuck in these lousy housing projects, and it's easy to forget that they exist. And you only see them.
And you'll on those snow days, what you see is a kid eating a bag of potato chips quickly and then chugging a Coca-Cola to get that fake full sensation.
Right.
I mean, it's heartbreaking.
Well, specifically working with at-risk youth, what are the specific programs you have? I do know that you're building fields for communities, and we'll touch base on the Wiley Bates Legacy Center, but you do have several different programs that you work with at-risk youth.
We have, as you touched on, we have we call Youth Development Park Initiative, and we're building synthetic turf, or as Cal likes to say, replicated grass parks across the country. We can talk more about that if you'd like. But
is that his replicated grass? Is that his term?
Yeah, synthetic turf. Yeah, you'll hear that in other places too. But yeah, he was the first one I heard it from. Synthetic turf, AstroTurf. It has such a negative connotation because you guys remember when we were kids, the athletes hated it because it was like it was on concrete and they would slide and they'd get hurt. It's not that way today at all anymore. It's as softer than grass. But so yes, replicated grass. Right. But so we've built 68 of those parks across the country. We have another probably 30 or 40 somewhere in the works from the planning stages to construction.
Back up again. 68 parks across the country.
Yeah, coast to coast.
And for those that are in the local area to Annapolis, check out it's the Ollie's Field, and I totally screwed up the full name of it, but it's
Ollie's Bargain Outlet.
Bargain Outlet Field, which is at the Bates Legacy Center, and it's a beautiful field. It's a beautiful facility, multi-purpose. It's not just baseball,
right?
And are all of the fields multi-purpose as well, for the most part?
They are designed to be multi-purpose fields, parks.
With the centricity to baseball?
Some of the parks are only, it depends on space and resources, money available to build. Some of the parks are built as little baseball fields. So that's our shtick, maybe, because of the Ripken name. Baseball
well, sure.
is
Why
what
wouldn't
we
it be?
use to leverage and to get kids involved and get them active, but it's not about baseball. So whether it looks like the Bates Field, which is a big rectangle, or a little baseball diamond, to us, they're multi-purpose fields. The kids can play kickball, dodgeball, baseball, wiffle ball, marbles, tag. We don't care. It's a safe place in a tough neighborhood for a kid to go outside and play, whatever they feel like playing.
Marbles.
No one does it anymore, I don't think. I did.
The little sideways cap going, hey, Jimmy, I'm going to get you your side. Then go on my paper route.
And Annapolis is not necessarily when you on the surface you look at it and say, this is a tough neighborhood, because it is a fairly safe area to be in. It's but you're not
if you're not in public housing, it is.
Yeah. Well, you're not going into the Annapolis. I mean, you are going into some of the inner cities and some of
we're going into some of the toughest neighborhoods in America, but using Annapolis as a point, those kids at the Bates Boys and Girls Club, where we built this field, are every bit as entitled to the opportunity to play as a kid in West Baltimore or South Central Los Angeles or inner city Phoenix. So while our focus tends to be more on what we think of as a traditionally tough, distressed community, kids are kids, and they all have a right to be able to play safely. And the parents or grandparents or great-grandparents have the right to know their kid is safe when he or she is outside playing.
When was the first field put in?
The first field was finished on December 7th, 2010, and that was 33rd Street in Baltimore, where Memorial Stadium used to be.
Fantastic.
Today, Memorial Stadium is our first youth development park. Home plate is exactly where it was when Brooks and Cal and Boog and Frank played. That little white house in left center is out there.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah.
And how has it been? Has it been kept well?
Yeah. Well, the thing about the replicated grass is it's hard to ruin it. This field, with the exception of the wear that takes place around the bases, especially home plate, the field looks brand new. Looks like it did on day one.
Do you find that there's a problem with vandalism at any of these schools? Or,
There hasn't been. That was our big concern. One of the reasons we use synthetic turf is because of the maintenance costs of grass fields. And the expense is just too high, even if they have the technical ability and knowledge as to how to take care of a field. Most don't.
Which is an entirely different.
Exactly.
You can probably attest to that, Tim.
But one of the things we're trying to relieve the community of is the maintenance costs of these fields. And so we invest more at the beginning to build a field, but then over the course of time, there's no question that it saves the community money.
So you're not finding the vandalism.
So our concern is not the maintenance costs, which is usually the concern on a park. It's the security. And so we pick our local partner carefully. We don't own these fields. We donate them to the local organization that we partner with.
And as far as constructing them,
Boys and Girls Clubs, schools.
Gotcha.
But as far as constructing them, you come up with the funds.
Yes, we do it together.
Okay, so there's a group fundraising effort
here's how it works. So the Bates Field, let's use that because it's right around the corner. If you were to build that on the open market, it's probably, because of the environmental regulations and things we had to deal with, it's close to a $2 million field. That's what it would cost you if you bid it out and paid full fare.
Probably $3 million if they had to deal with permits for the city of Annapolis.
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
I'll throw that out there.
Well, so instead of the $2 million, because we have a real expertise in this and build so many, our pricing is very good.
There's an economy of scale.
And there's no question. We built it, I don't remember the exact price, but probably $1,350,000.
Okay.
Is that average, you think?
Average is about $1.1 million now. Okay. Used to be about $1 million. It's definitely creeping up. So we built it, let's just say $1,350,000, a field that would have cost you $2 million. We then raised probably $600,000, $650,000 of the 1.3. Mike Bush contributed about $500,000 through the legislature.
Right.
The city and the county contributed, and some private donors in Annapolis contributed. So for the cost of about $650,000, the community got a $2 million field. So it's a great investment.
So you do this
put
so
real
often
skin in the game.
That you do it so often that you can pretty much go from place to place and know all the switches to flip. Like, you know exactly.
Yeah, it varies.
But I mean,
yes.
but you know pretty much how to capture the money.
Absolutely.
So you can move. It seems like you move pretty quickly, because I'm looking at the map you have right here, and of course you have the urban centers. I can pick out. There's Houston, there's Minneapolis, there's DC, etc. But you're also in areas that are pretty rural, which is North Dakota, South Dakota, Idaho, and
now those aren't where we have fields necessarily. That's where we have a presence.
Gotcha. So what's the difference between the two?
Well, we have 68 fields.
The other programs.
We probably have 600 communities where we've run our programs, all 50 states.
Well, let's talk about some of the other programs that you have.
Which is what we started on. So we have our fields. We also have a series of incredibly impactful programs, one of which is called Badges for Baseball. And think of this in today's environment, where police and kids in inner city communities across America are literally shooting each other, all right, including in Baltimore. We go in, we use baseball as a hook, we bring together the police officers and kids from communities like West Baltimore, and instead of shooting each other, they're talking, and they're playing baseball while they talk, and they're developing a relationship which up to this point has only been negative. Police only go in when they're there for, in the minds of the kid, a bad reason, like pulling their brother out of the house. Sure. Now they're going in to say, who wants to play a little ball? And there's a curriculum that we've developed which uses baseball as the hook, but it's used to teach kids life lessons like perseverance, positive thinking, nutrition, personal accountability, hanging out with the right group of kids, and why those things are important. Why is it important if you're playing baseball? Why is it important to your teammates to persevere? But much more importantly, why is it important when you go back home to persevere? And, the programs run differently from project site to project site, of course. We just give them guidelines and a curriculum and all the tools they need to run the program. but it's transformational. And it's not that we are transformational, but when you bring police officers and these kids together, it is transformational. And now these kids who would be killing other kids and police officers and who knows what are considering, this was a side effect we didn't even think about, they're considering law enforcement as a career because now the coach is a police officer, and everyone who doesn't want to be like their coach when you're a kid.
Cops are cool now.
Yeah.
I remember there was a viral video a while ago down in Orlando, I think it was, and some cops rolled up on some kids that were shooting hoops in the street, and they got out and the cops were getting beat. They said, we're calling for backup, and all of a sudden another car rolls with Shaq comes out.
Oh,
and,
right.
And
I did see that.
But again,
Yeah.
it was like, well, no, the cops are rolling up, and maybe it's a dance-off, maybe it's a baseball game, maybe it's a football game or a basketball game. It really does.
Well, it's a very
it's just
complex
the talking.
dynamic, is that you forget that, we said before, stereotypically, a lot of these boys don't have men in their lives. So the only men that they have in their lives that they have regular contact with, again, stereotypically, would be the police officers, and they're seen as adversaries. But if you put them together, not only does it fulfill that need to have that male influence, but it also creates a positive attitude towards the police. Because a lot of these kids don't do anything wrong,
Exactly.
but they have a bad attitude by the police because they're around that all the time, and they have a fear, even if they've never had an interaction with them per se, they've seen it all the time. They've had these leagues all over the country for years, which is PAL, which is police athletic leagues, and they've mostly been football and basketball. But I mean,
And they're moderately successful. Some of the pals are
They're all
great.
very different,
Some of them are not good. But that's the case with any national organization that has affiliates. Some of them are great. Some of them are terrible. Most are in the middle somewhere.
I know in locally here, we've got a cop named Taylor Piles who has established a nonprofit called the Blue Ribbon Foundation. And what they do, and it's sort of grown nationally a little bit, it's not nearly to the scope of Cal Ripken Sr. Foundation, but backpacks with
It's great.
very common stuff that you need to deal with foster children as they move through the system. So it's familiar stuff. It may be a teddy bear, and it may be some toothpaste, and it may be a blanket that's comforting or something along those lines. As children move from home to home or from facility to facility, he gives it to be able to do it.
Maybe you could give me the officer's name. We would love to find a good connection in this area. That sounds like a great program.
Consider that done. I'll make sure that you guys make the connection on that when we're done here on that. But you go beyond that. I mean, baseball. I mean, I know I saw that you've got like the Healthy Choices, Healthy Children program.
Those are the life. So the Healthy Choices, Healthy Children curriculum is the curriculum we use, the life skills, and it's based on the lessons Cal Sr. taught Cal and Billy and thousands of other ball players, major league and minor league that we never heard of, like perseverance, right? And personal accountability and showing up every day. If you say you're going to do something, do it. That's what the Healthy Choices curriculum is. Make the right choices in life, and we try and teach them how to do it and why it's so important to do it.
Okay, so that's not a healthy choices or just good choices. I mean, does it jump into nutrition?
It does.
Or to a point?
It does.
It has a little bit of a Michelle Obama kind of a healthy nutrition ring to it.
Nutrition. Our curriculum, when I say curriculum, really what they are flip books that fit in your back pocket. And we call it back pocket programming. So that a school gym teacher, health teacher, a Boys and Girls Club worker, the YMCA counselor, has a little booklet that they can put in their back pocket, pull out and give the lesson for the day. The nutrition booklet is very basic, talks about, and we worked with some folks at the Mayo Clinic, a national health magazine, and my staff to develop these lessons. Why is an apple better for you than a candy bar? You know, these are basic things, but these kids don't know that.
Well, bad food's cheap too. That's why the poverty belt in the country follows the obesity belt. They're all the same. It's if you get certain food assistance, that you can spend money on soda is very cheap. You can get a 2-liter soda,
and it fills you up. It's amazing. And our programs are written for middle school age kids. So the lessons have to be more basic.
So you're looking at what, 7 to 14, 8 to 14 type?
I really, our focus is 5th grade to 8th grade.
Okay.
But in reality, 4th grade to 9th grade primarily.
I'm looking, you've got the summer camp program, and I know we were talking a little bit before we started, my son participated in the Ripken summer camps for 2 summers, and I know that the Cal Ripken Sr. Foundation, which is a separate entity, also has these summer camps. Are they the same camps?
We stole all the good ideas that Ripken baseball
all the best ones
staff
are stolen.
had.
Repurposed.
I'm
in marketing. We call it repurposed.
We love to repurpose.
Repurposed grass, repurposed camp.
They teach us and work with us on the baseball skills because we do want the kids to play baseball and learn. And some of these kids want to play baseball, and sometimes these kids have great athletic talent that nobody knew about.
Sure.
So they get on the baseball field. These kids...
That's like the American Idol of sports. I mean, you get out there
in
and
a way.
you're like, whoa, where did this talent come from?
That's right. That's exactly right. They hold that bat split-handed because they've never held a baseball bat before. If they throw with their right hand, they think their glove goes on their right hand. And so these are not baseball players, but some of them are sensational athletes. But the Ripken baseball staff, it's a professional baseball operation. They train my staff, they train the police officers, some of the coaches and mentors. We call them coaches, but Boys and Girls Club type worker.
Right.
Who are required to come to camp with their kids. And then in addition to playing ball, which we do in the morning, and by the way, you have United States Marshals, Maryland State Police, local police, D.C., Montgomery County, out there competing with the kids.
Right.
Yeah, with the bomb dogs, drug dogs, helicopters, SWAT units, all the fun, but in a good way. So they play baseball in the morning. Then we go back to a camp. We put them up on the Chesapeake Bay.
Okay, is this all up in
Northeast Maryland?
Northeast,
yeah,
right.
Exactly, up in Northeast.
And
we do life skills.
Camp there. She had it. We just got her from camp last week, and isn't that the one with the big
the
zip ropes? Yeah,
we
were just
two
up there.
camps out there that we use. Yes,
way down at the end of the.
Yes, one of them has
you
a
need a
big
ladder
zip
to get
line.
to one of them. Is that
Yes.
far down in Maryland?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a cool little town, though.
So these kids now, okay, it's a beautiful little town right on the water. These kids have never been out. Not only have they never been out of, let's say we bring them from Houston, because we bring kids from all over America, all expenses paid by us, come from Houston to our camp. Not only have these kids never been outside of Houston before, and they've never been on an airplane before, they've never been outside of a 2 or 3 block radius of their home.
I know a guy in Annapolis. He's 60 years old. He grew up in public housing. He's now at the Timothy House. He said he's never been further than, in 60 years, he's never been further than parole. That's as far as he's been.
And there are some that have never been down to City Dock to see the bay.
Yeah, and these are little kids.
Crazy.
So they really have never been.
So all of your summer camp that the Cal Ripken Sr. Foundation does, that is held here locally in Maryland, correct?
Held in Maryland. We do smaller camps and clinics, 1 and 2 day camps around the country.
Okay.
But our summer camp is here.
Is here at the facility, and you use
the facility in Aberdeen, and we use the camp out in Northeast.
Okay.
Typically.
Question is, I know during the Ripken baseball camps, which is a pay to go camp, and you really learn some major skills coming through there for youth that are interested in baseball. And Billy and Cal were both very hands-on involved there. Are they personally hands-on in this? I mean, they're
and it's gotten to the point now where I think I take it for granted. Nobody cares more about these kids than those two guys. Cal and Bill are so committed to this. Bill's in New York a lot now, doing his MLB broadcast, but these guys are so passionate about making a difference.
So their fingerprints are all over everything on this.
All over it. This was their vision. What we did was help show them how we're going to get there.
How did you come aboard here?
I was with Boys and Girls Clubs of America.
Okay.
I was helping to run the government relations office in D.C. The headquarters was in Atlanta. Boys and Girls Clubs of America was in Atlanta. Cal Sr. and Vi, Cal and Bill's mom, helped start the Boys and Girls Clubs in Harford County, Maryland, Aberdeen, and Greater Aberdeen. And so I got to know them a little bit and didn't know Cal and Bill, had a relationship with Vi and knew Cal Sr. a little bit before he passed away. And I got a phone call one day from a mutual friend, would you be interested in helping? I said, sure. I mean, I was going to help for free.
Some little piddly foundation up there. Sure,
and it was just starting up.
Which is exciting, actually.
And we raised, and we raised some money. I just did it on the side. We raised some money to help build Cal Sr.'s yard and to help get the foundation started. And I guess 3 years later, I went over full time.
Now, you also mentioned we've got the Annapolis, the youth development fields that we built here, and you've got 63 of them, and you said like 30 or so in the works.
Yeah.
You also mentioned about ability fields program.
Yes, right.
And this stems not necessarily from not solely at-risk youth, which we tend to think of as inner city, single parent,
Right.
Perhaps public housing, lower income type of a thing. But this extends a little bit beyond that.
That's right. And we stumbled onto it. Most of what we do, we actually stumbled onto. If you want to know the
It's life
truth.
in general.
Yeah.
There's no plan.
So we, as I said, the first field we completed was Old Memorial Stadium, that site. But the first park we started on was in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And we ended up there because Doris Buffett, Warren Buffett's sister, called us one day. Cal and Warren are friendly. She called one day and said, my brother said I need to call. You guys are in my backyard, and I have a project you might be interested in. Will you come down? So we went down to talk to her, an associate of mine and I.
When Warren Buffett's sister calls, you go.
That's right. She's got a foundation called the Sunshine Lady Foundation, and she wanted to build fields for kids in Fredericksburg. She didn't want to work with the city, wanted to know if we would help her. And if we would raise $1 million, she would give us $1 million. Well, this was at the very beginning. We're trying to raise money to keep our lights on, and here's this woman saying, I'll give you $1 million. If we didn't know what she was talking about. Oh, yeah, we'll build a field, sure, whatever. Had no idea what we were getting into. Honest to God, I thought you just, literally roll out the turf and nail it down. Well, about 5 years later, we finally finished that field. That was our second or third park complete. But that's how we stumbled into it. Well, in that community, the only piece of property really we could get was a big 9-acre lot that needed a lot of site work. So we just graded the whole thing. So there was room for another field. And a special needs group from down there, I don't know if it was the Miracle League, but they're based in Fredericksburg, came to us and said, we'd love to put a field in for our kids. Would you help us? And that was personally my first experience working with a group like that, and I wasn't aware of the issues like we are today. And we said, sure, we'd be happy to work with you, tell us. And and it turns out that these kids are at risk in a different way. They come from wonderful, caring families in a wonderful, caring community, but they don't have a place to play either. And
Limited by their physical disability.
exactly. And so what you need is a very thin poured rubber field or a very thin replicated grass field so that the wheelchairs, the crutches, whatever their need is, they're able to move on that playing surface. And they don't exist. They're very expensive and they just don't exist. And so these groups end up playing in parking lots. And it's a really sad thing. They have the same right that all kids have, to have a field of their own. And so in Fredericksburg, we built our first, what we call Ability Field, but it's designed for special needs fields. Geico is the title sponsor of that.
Now, is this something that you said that they didn't have the field? It wasn't invented yet with the alternate grass. What's the alternate grass?
Well, not that it wasn't invented. It's expensive. They have them. When I say they don't exist, what I meant to say was they're far and few between. Or is it few and far between?
At least outside outside high schools and such.
Well, even high schools, they don't. Yeah, but they don't have fields for these kids that meets their needs.
No, I meant in general. When you say the fields around, I know for the special needs kids, that's very specific.
That's what I'm talking about. The special needs kids here. And so we've now built, I want to say 12 or 13 special needs fields. They cost about $500,000 a piece.
That's going to be a huge draw, because you're not going to have a town, you're not going to have that many in a town, but people from neighboring communities and everything. That's got to be pretty huge.
It's a larger population that I was aware of, and they become regional destinations. People come from hundreds of miles to bring their son or daughter to play on these fields. We've built a field at the Maryland School for the Blind. At Kennedy Krieger, they've got a school that focuses on special needs kids. In Fredericksburg, with the Los Angeles Dodgers out in L.A., and many others.
Now, do you run, just out of curiosity, I know through various entities, whether it be this foundation or Ripken Baseball, you run the tournaments and whatnot. Do you run through the foundation a tournament for special needs?
We don't get into running tournaments. We don't do that at all.
Are there organizations?
But the special needs groups do, absolutely.
Okay, good.
Absolutely.
That's where I was getting at, to make sure that it was it's all fine and good to sit there and be able to practice and have a scrimmage or a game among
they
others,
absolutely
but then to
do.
Get into that's fantastic.
So it looks like you had about 25 in the pipeline, at least that was listed on the map I saw. But how many do you have total?
Of our youth development parks? Mm-hmm. So today we have 68. And it's coast to coast, I think 20 states.
Yeah, mostly I saw it concentrated on the East Coast, but you did have a good bit in Texas.
Concentrated on the East Coast because...
Just population.
Yes, but it's also much more price friendly.
Really?
If we stay closer to where we are. Well, sure, because some of the issues that you get into building a field in Seattle don't necessarily exist in Baltimore, and it causes the price to go up. But
does that have to do with the location and manufacturing and all
we
that?
have to manage the project. My staff goes out, makes regular site visits. The company that we use to build our parks is 95% of our parks is a company called Fields Inc. The farther they go, the more their travel costs are.
So how do you raise money for the foundation?
Shipping for the turf, like any other nonprofit organization. It's we're not a private foundation. We're a public 501c3
right?
corporation. We raise our budget every year, and we do it the way any good nonprofit does. We've got some special events. We go to major donors. We're constantly cultivating relationships. We do things like this to get the word out. You never know who's going to hear and have an interest. We have someone in Annapolis who's interested now in
Hey, if
building
you're
a
listening,
couple parks. Yeah.
Come on, Nick, got names? Throwing out some names?
One of our special events is a wine tasting that we hold here in Annapolis every year.
Yep, down there off of...
I think we've held it 10 times. I think this was our 10th year.
Where is it?
It actually used to be in the mansion that burned down
That's right.
several years ago, where those 4 children died.
Where the tree,
Yeah.
Oh, way to bring it down.
Very sad. Yeah,
And
really
They now have it
terrible, and
in
a
the barn
wonderful
back there
family.
along
Now
Harness Creek.
Not great for us.
this year we used, I'm drawing a blank on the name of the restaurant, right on the water.
The Ebb Tide. No.
Severnon.
No.
Carroll's Creek.
No, now you're making me
House.
look bad. Chart House, thank you. There we go. Go to the Chart House.
Let's do some creative editing here.
And then we did a VIP party afterwards at Cal's house. It was
Right.
fun. And we probably raised $250,000. All the proceeds from that event and any other event we do go to support the kids.
So just as an overview, so you're like any other 501c3, you raise money, you have corporate partners and
Sure.
what have you. So you have the camps, you have the programs, you have the fields. So you got your fingers in a lot.
We have our
pretty much.
fingers in a lot, and there's a lot of need.
Right.
And that's why we're doing it. My philosophy, Cal's, Bill's, my board's philosophy is someone else can do the easy work. While we have the ability to do this, we want to do the hard stuff. And so we don't back away from it. This year we have to raise $33 million to build these fields that we're trying to build, to put on the events, to reach the kids, to bring them to the summer camp, and we'll do it.
And you increase that every year, huh?
Knock on wood, it's been increased every year.
Even during the recession?
Even during the recession. We have not had a down year. We had 2000, I think it was 9.
That's when it kicked.
We probably
That was
had
the year that scared the hell out of
1%
everyone.
growth.
Yeah.
But yeah.
If you grew anything in 2009, that was worth doubling in size. That was when 10% down was you're doing fine.
You hoped for it, that's right.
Well, I think it's pretty phenomenal. I mean, obviously, you're very fortunate to have a masthead for Cal Ripken.
No doubt.
To be able to do that. But you look at some of the professional athletes that are doing some wonderful things. I mean, we've talked to, you look at
Ravens.
the Ravens.
Do a great job.
You look at...
and I'm saying that as a Redskins
even
fan.
look at Ray Rice, what he's doing for domestic abuse, and
Right.
we'll throw it out there. Michael Vick with for the SPCA, he's been the greatest fundraiser for the SPCA.
Well, court ordered.
Has ever seen. He's turned around and whatnot. But I think you look at these professional athletes that have done it, but you've got arguably one of the greatest athletes of all time.
Yeah.
That's. I wouldn't even say lent his name to your organization, but is your organization and has put his fingerprints all over it.
Yeah. He's a great human being. And my board of directors, I don't know if you've looked that deeply at us. It's unlike almost any other nonprofit board in America. I mean, it's amazing. And
There's a
guys
lot
are
of diversity.
passionate.
There's a lot of diversity on that board, and I mean, it's not necessarily. Look at this. It's not the Waltons. It's not Warren Buffett. It's not loaded up with all of these huge, big shot, big money names necessarily. And it does. You're right. It does look.
We
very
would
much,
take those guys if we could, and women
absolutely.
if we could get them. But it's a powerful, powerful board. Probably by the end of the calendar year, 65-70% of my board, which is a 40-member board,
That's huge.
will have either given or raised $100,000 or more. I mean, it's an amazing board. It's unheard of in the nonprofit world. Each. Right. It's unheard of.
So how do you herd 40 cats? I mean, board members.
Yeah. Well, fortunately for me, I don't have to. They're fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. We do have an executive committee which has the authority to act on behalf of the full board, and the executive committee's 10 or 11 members. So for practical purposes, that's how you run the organization with a board that large.
And it's pretty consistent, but you don't have a whole lot of turnover with the board?
We have some turnover.
I mean, it's normal.
But not a lot. Yeah. We have less than most, probably.
Because that's a huge board. That's
Yeah. For a national organization, though, it's not. But it's getting big, yeah.
How many employees does the Cal Ripken Sr. Foundation employ?
We have probably 31 or 32 employees now.
Do you have any idea how much Cal Ripken baseball employs?
I don't know. But, I mean, really, it's completely separate entity. But they have a lot of seasonal staff with minor leagues, with their summer camps,
and
with the
programs
tournaments. Yeah, so that would not be a fair comparison. But yeah, we've grown into a very large, this year hopefully $35 million national nonprofit organization, and there aren't many of those in the world of youth-serving organizations.
And you pretty much do it all. I mean, you obviously got fundraising. You act as a project manager or construction manager on your moving dirt projects. You've got program managers for the programs that you're doing. You've got educators, and then everything else that goes with it, marketing people and everything else, which is...
We run very much like an entrepreneurial, fast-moving, for-profit company. That's by design. And this gets harder as we continue to grow, but that's by design.
And remind me when we first started, you said this started in 2000...
Cal Sr. passed away in 1999.
Right.
The organization started in 2001. But for the first few years, first of all, Cal had not retired yet. And for the first few years, they were trying to find their way, figure out what it is they wanted to do, how they were going to get there, what they're supposed to be doing. And so around 2005, 2006, things really started happening. Yeah.
So in 17 years, you've gone from just an idea with some talented baseball players to this.
Yeah. Well, it takes passion, and that's what my staff has. That's what the board has. I said Cal and Bill have more passion than anybody when it comes to these kids. And so we're really very fortunate.
And they hired you away from the Boys and Girls Club?
Yeah.
You're here for the duration?
I'm here as long as Cal wants me around.
How do we learn more about the Ripken Foundation, Cal Ripken Sr. Foundation? Where do we send our checks?
We have a wonderful website, ripkenfoundation.org. All the information is on there. Information about our programs, about our parks, how to get involved, what's the latest that's been going on, our events.
Do you look for volunteers to help out at the programs in the summer camps and whatnot?
We do.
Okay.
We absolutely do.
And that would that be applicable to older, I'll say young people, the 18 to 21?
Yes, of course, but it varies. I mean, number one, our program sites are always looking for volunteers. Those local nonprofit youth organizations live on volunteers. Sure. And so that's typically where we would send potential volunteers. But we're also look for them at our headquarters and in our summer camps and for our special events. It depends on the setting. I mean, volunteers, it can be hard to manage sometimes, even though it's all well-meaning and people just want to help make a difference. It's not always as easy as it seems.
Well, if you're here in Annapolis, make sure you go down to the Bates Legacy Center and check out the Ollie's Bargain Warehouse Field, courtesy of the Cal Ripken Sr. Foundation and the great work that Steve Salem, who is the president and CEO of the foundation, has done. It's a wonderful facility, and for the thanks of obviously the foundation, as you mentioned, Speaker Bush wrangling some money out of the...
And you mentioned Ollie's Bargain Outlet. Mark Butler is the CEO of Ollie's Bargain Outlet. He's also my board chairman.
Okay.
And talk about a champion for these
Where
kids.
is Ollie's based out of? Are they
based out of... Their headquarters is in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
They've got probably 230 stores now.
See, no, I thought that was a much more local...
Well, it probably was at one point.
It's probably I just never lived in the areas where they are.
It is a major. It's become a major corporation, publicly traded. I'm so blessed to have Mark as our board chairman. This guy just gives and gives and gives, as you can see at Bates.
Absolutely. Well, if you're not familiar with it, go out there, check it out. It's a beautiful facility. Go out there and play on it, because that's what it's meant for. Steve Salem, thank you very much for coming in on this rainy day down to Annapolis. Best of luck. And anytime you want to come back, anytime to talk about the good stuff that the Ripken Sr. Foundation is doing, want to bring Cal next time or Billy next time with you, bring them along. We've got an extra chair and we can go from there.
Yeah, they explain baseball to me. I don't follow it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
And that was Steve Salem. We were talking baseball.
Okay, I totally didn't realize the scope of this whole thing. The ability fields just really blew my mind.
That's pretty cool. And that's the problem, I think, when you have a disabled child or something, or you yourself is disabled, is that there's an economy to scale when it comes to these sort of projects, that there's not that big of a need in a concentrated area because people tend to be spread out. So I think it's really cool that they build those fields.
It really is. It's and they're doing such great work. And then, as you mentioned, I mean, they've got presences in North Dakota and pretty much all over the country. And off air, we talked a little bit about how unassuming Cal Ripken is. Mm-hmm. And they said, we'll go into a place and he'll be like, I don't want any press releases saying that I'm coming to make a speech or make a presentation or an award or anything like that. He said, you can tell him after I'm gone, but I don't want this whole big...
He's a huge dude, like physically. Back in June, I was getting a suit at Nordstrom. I was getting it hemmed, and he was standing next to me, and I didn't realize how big that guy is.
Oh, he's tall.
They're just big. I mean, I'm a tall guy. I'm 6'3", and I think he got a couple inches on me, and just like broad shoulders. He's a big guy.
That's why you don't hold the world record for the longest number of games played in baseball, and why you can't play baseball.
But I didn't try, in all fairness. I didn't know there was a contest. If there was a contest, I might have given it a shot. No one told me that was a thing, and I hate baseball.
That's right.
I don't hate baseball. I just never got into it.
They probably steered you toward basketball or something like that.
I did. I love basketball and football, but I was too skinny.
But yeah, definitely check out ripkenfoundation.org and look at all the great stuff they're doing. And separate from the Ripken Foundation, the Cal Ripken Sr. Foundation, they do have Ripken Baseball, and you can Google that. And my son did that several years ago when he was little, where it's these baseball clinics. And I mean, it's go attend a camp, but boy, it is it's an expensive, but it's a worthwhile camp. If your child has some serious talent or is seriously interested in baseball, I would definitely recommend both of those. But definitely check out ripkenfoundation.org, see what they're all about, and see if there's something that you want to get involved with, or maybe to write a check for.
You ever, I don't know, have former athletes always been like this, or is it kind of a new thing where they have all these foundations? And because remember that I guess he was a Pittsburgh Steeler. I can't remember his name, but he had that camp out for like juvenile delinquents, or whatever they're called now, where they came and worked on his camp, and like it was like the tough love sort of thing.
Right.
And I'm trying to remember his name. He was a Pittsburgh Steeler, and that was back in like the early '80s. And I just don't remember them, like former athletes, being as active when I was a kid as they are now.
It's a different world too that we live in now. I think they realize that a lot
of it's PR. Like when you're in the sports, I mean, when you're playing and everything, a lot of that's PR. A lot of it's marketing, which is fine. I mean, if you're doing good, but a lot of the guys who come out of it are really give back. I think it's pretty amazing. Let's
be real, because in the days gone by, I mean, you didn't have free agency, you didn't have the salaries that we're seeing now. Okay, so you played baseball, you earned a good living, and you retired, and if you played football, you hoped you didn't have a concussion and die an early death. But I mean, you've got salaries, you've got the ability we're much more savvy about managing our money. And I think that in the case of the Ripken Foundation, here's a guy that found a way to honor his father, had the wherewithal, the money to, let's get this done and to really make a difference, and continues to do it. And I think it's just a wonderful thing.
Well, shifting gears for a second, let's talk a little bit about the crab cakes we have coming up.
Yes.
Because you have been a busy boy.
Yeah, I have. I've been talking with all of the aldermen candidates for the city of Annapolis.
All of them. There's a ton.
Yeah, there's 19, but 2 of them haven't responded yet. But by the end of this week, I will have everybody recorded. And what we do is probably Monday or Tuesday of next week, I will release all of them at one time within about 15-minute increments. And the reason I'm doing that is just because I don't want to give anybody else the answers or any unfair advantage. Everybody's getting the same questions, so it's all the really same focus thing, so you can really compare candidate to candidate in your ward. They will be identified as what ward they're in the title, so when you see a bunch of new episodes come down on your phone, make sure that you go back into it and say, hey, I need to look at Ward 5 or Ward 6 or 7 or whatever it is and listen to the candidates that were involved there. I will put that together also on a single post tonight on Annapolis, where all of them will be there listed.
And you
as
can
a
choose
player.
your ward, yeah.
And you can listen to them all or whatever if you don't want to do that. But just a heads up that that's going to come. So if you're going to look at your phone one day and go, oh my God, what the hell are they doing? That's what we're doing.
Yeah, so they're throwing out the term like everyone knows it. So what we have is we put out the crab cakes on occasion, probably a couple a week maybe, and those are smaller episodes than the ones that come down on Thursdays like you listen to today. These that we do are around an hour, 59 minutes, a minute to something like that, but the crab cakes generally be between 20 and 30 minutes.
Right.
And so I have one on composting, the Annapolis compost, there's one on makerspace, and John's done a ton of them, but John has sat down with every single aldermanic candidate, and we have all these crab cakes coming out. So like John says, you're going to get flooded, but it's all for a good reason.
Absolutely. And you know what? I was just looking at the calendar because I still do old school with like the episodes. I on a paper calendar.
Yeah.
And I noticed that this one is 51.
Oh.
So you know what that means?
That means that we have drinking episode coming up.
The next one is a year.
That's a drinking episode.
Yeah. Who should we drink with? Don't tell.
All right.
Make them tune in to find out.
No, oh, that's called a teaser, where I come from.
That's it.
The cliffhanger.
All right. You want to end it or you want me to?
I thought we just did. Bye.
This has been the Maryland Crabs Podcast with Tim Hamilton and John Fernay. Sure to follow them in all the regular places, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and online at themarylandcrabs.com. Take a moment to rate us on iTunes. Now, get the hell out of my kitchen. Seriously, go!
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.